But speaking of 50 years ago, it was a little more than that. It was the spring of 1964 in the old Waldorf cafeteria on Main Street, across from the Federal Building, when the great Gitch Jackman, Maha Gitchy, introduced me to another young high school freak punk from the other side of town who wandered in a raggy t-shirt and Madras Bermuda shorts and a 4-string guitar slung over his back. He says, "Ah, this is Steve Martin." "Oh, cool. I think this is somebody I want to know for a while." And it was the real Steve Martin, not the Steve Martin banjo clown, but Worcester's own Steve Martin, Stephen Benjamin Martin. And that summer, everybody ran down to Provincetown, and we talked about writing a lot. And Stephen went up to Algonquin all by himself, didn't know anybody there, and actually wrote all summer. Which is why he's turned out to be a hell of a better writer than any of the rest of us, because he worked at it. So it is now my honor to introduce my oldest, bestest friend and sometime bandmate, Stephen B. Martin.
I'm going to read from my forthcoming novel, Thumper, which was my nickname when I was a kid. Because, you know, back in the day when fetuses hiccuped, everybody thought they were kicking. And I guess I hiccuped a lot. And so my mother named me Thumper because Thumper used to, you know, kick on the log to warn, you know, everybody when man was coming. And that's how I got the name. But you are the protagonist in this story. By the way, Billy Joe played washtub bass in my first band. Yeah, and we were all into cough syrup back then. And Billy Joe, we were on stage down in Rhode Island somewhere, and he was going like this, and Griff Dorkin was playing a harmonica, and Billy Joe's going, "Go man, go, go man," and then he fell off the stage. Yeah, okay. In grainy gloom beneath black drapes, the radiator clanks in time, as if a metal man were slowly climbing up the fire escape. Sirens howl and trucks and buses hiss and roar like jungle beasts 4 floors below. And when all the city's sleeping and the only inside sounds are your father's heavy breathing and the ticking of the kitchen clock, there's always the rhythm of your blood pulsing past your ear. And when you listen for it, there's that ringing, almost too high to hear, sometimes faint, sometimes loud. At first you think it must be coming from outside, but it's louder when you cover your ears. You don't like it. Nor do you like the constant tick-tocking. In your head, the space between each tick or talk is taken by the echo of the talk or tick before it. Tick-tick, tock-tock, tick-tick, tock-tock. Sometimes the spaces between ticks and talks seem longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes it gets so loud you have to put the pillow over your head. You were awake when they came to bed, pretending to be asleep. It's easier this way. They know you have trouble sleeping, and you all know there's nothing they can do about it, so why worry them? Nobody knows you're awake right now, nobody in the world. Your mind keeps jumping from thought to thought like a monkey from limb to limb. You just can't sleep until you just can't stay awake. And before you know it, the drapes are forest green again, and you can hear and feel the slap and shudder of the big white washer with the wringer on top. Your mother's doing laundry in the kitchen. Here you are, climbing out of your bed, which was your crib until you turned 3 and they took off the bars. You're 4 now, a big boy. You put on your trusty red felt cowboy hat first thing, chewed up but still salty, chin strap between your teeth, and wobble along the narrow path between your parents' bed and yours, tiptoeing down the hallway past the den. The den's too small to be the living room you don't have, but your father's managed to cram in his roll-top desk, bookcase, desk chair, and a couch that would turn into a bed if there were enough room. You peek into the kitchen. There she is, tall and thin in her pale blue house dress and embroidered white apron. She's waiting for the tub to fill. A black rubber hose runs from the faucet over the high sink into the washer. She stands still, one hand on the washer, the other on the edge of the sink. To the right of the sink is a stove. The old wooden standard icebox squats in the corner near the door. A table and chairs occupy the middle of the room. She doesn't know you're up, so you hop over the threshold like a surprised cowboy bunny and yell, "Hi, Mommy!" As if in answer, she swoons and falls. So very slowly, sinking now to her knees, now to her embroidered hip and elbow, now her shoulder and head. And she looks at you with a terrible expression, mouth open as if to speak, eyes wide with fear and disbelief, eyebrows scrunched together in pain. She's not getting up. Soap suds bubble up over the washer's lip and slide to the floor. You try to pull her away, but she won't budge. The water overflows and splashes to the floor, pushing foam across the room. Your feet slip out from under you, and this is you, helpless, crying on the floor. Like a miracle, a key tick-clicks in the lock, and your father and Uncle Billy burst in. Sliding across the wet linoleum in his loafers, Billy turns off the faucet. Your father carries her to the bedroom, where he dries her off and puts dry clothes on her, while Billy starts mopping up. You dry yourself off and get mostly dressed, doing very well with your underwear, socks, and pants. You even have your shoes on the right feet, but your father has to rebutton your shirt and tie your shoelaces. He says, "I'd best help your uncle before we flood the whole building. You stay here and let us know if there's any change at all." And he gathers up all the towels in the house and spreads them on the kitchen floor while you watch her chest barely rise and fall. You study her pale ceramic face, looking for the slightest change other than her eyes moving behind their lids, which he says is good. But there's no movement at all. And you hold her icy hands to warm them, wondering if she can feel it. Your father picks up the dripping towels and dumps them in the bathtub. And to Billy he says, "I'll go down to the diner and call an ambulance." Billy says, "It could take an ambulance a half hour or more to get here, Ellie. My car's right next door at the station. I can be out front by the time you get her down, and you're at the emergency room in 10 minutes. The janitor comes through the open door with his mop and bucket and says, "I got it from here. You get the missus to the hospital, and I'll lock up." Billy hurries down the door and down the stairs. Your father says, "Grab your blanket and a book to read. You'll have to stay with Charlie in the diner until I get back." He wraps her in a blanket and carries her to the scary elevator, which is just arriving, with the Iceman visible inside. With giant tongs, he carries a big block of ice in each hand. One is for your icebox, and the other is for your neighbors down the hall. He sets them down, slides open the aluminum cage gate, opens the wrought iron door gate that surrounds the elevator shaft, picks up his ice, and steps out. Your father says, "Can we settle up next time?" The Iceman nods once, "Sure thing," and holds the gates until you're all aboard, and closes them for you. You rattle and sway your rickety way down, holding on tight and peering through the mesh floor. The small black square that is the basement grows bigger until it threatens to swallow you, but the cage jerks to a stop, inches above the hole. You can feel and smell its cool, musky breath. You step into a gray, windy day. Billy drops you off with Charlie Malonis. He's the short order cook at the Bluebell Diner. And through the window you watch as your father gets in the back seat and Billy drives him off to Memorial Hospital, where you were born. The Bluebell squats between your red brick tenement and Al's Flying A gas station, where Billy works. It's a real railroad dining car built in Worcester. It has checkerboard floor tiles and red upholstered wooden booths with coat hooks. Every booth has a window onto Chandler Street and its own little red and chrome Nickelodeon beneath the window. There are red upholstered counter stools with chrome strips around their rims and years of hard dead gum under their rotating seats. Hugging your giant child's garden of verses, your frayed blue baby blanket, and the car pillow your mother embroidered for you, you climb into the corner booth and wait while Charlie grills his crunchy corn muffin with lots of butter. You wash it down with a glass of cold milk and withdraw into brightly colored fantasies bordered by hollyhocks and morning glories, washed over by jolly suns and moons and sailing clouds. The book is full of wonderful stories and poems about hiding under carpets and ships at sea and poor little puffins and owls and pussycats and radiator lions. You're careful not to touch the shiny black spider in the top corner of Little Miss Muffet's page. You can already read a lot of the words, but you know the stories by heart anyway. And that's all because your mother has read to you so many times, you safe in her lap, following her long white finger as it slides from word to word. You go through the whole book twice and climb up on a stool to talk baseball with Charlie. You're both Yankee fans. Your father's a Red Sox fan. Your mother likes the Phillies because she was born and raised in South Philadelphia. She used to play mandolin and xylophone in a string band and march in Mother's Day parades. She still has 2 mandolins in her tall mahogany wardrobe way up on the top shelf. She says she'll teach you how to play when you're old enough. After a grilled cheese sandwich and a glass of chocolate milk, you curl up in your booth for a nap. Upon waking, you kneel at the window and watch the bundled up people head home. Those heading uphill must lean against the same gritty wind that hurries the others downhill. For a strange minute, just before it sets, the sun peeks through and paints a golden triangle high on the corner of another brick building. The triangle shrinks and disappears as headlights blink on. More and more honking cars and trucks and cabs and buses pass more and more slowly as rush hour arrives. The giant neon teddy bear above the tire store across the street lights up. He wears a nightgown and nightcap. Over one shoulder he carries a tire, and the candle in his other paw flickers yellow in the almost dark. 3 neon words keep flashing on, one at a time. Time to retire. Everybody remember that? Yeah. There's nobody else in the diner, so getting up on a stool, you ask Charlie, well, what if my father doesn't come back by closing time? He says your Uncle Billy will come get you, but we won't be closing for another couple of hours, so don't worry about it. Are you hungry yet? You are. How does a cheeseburger, french fries, and a Coke sound? Sounds good. He slaps the patty on the grill and drops the fries. Your father walks in, sits down next to you, and says, I'll have what he's having, and hands you a teddy bear he bought at the hospital gift shop. He clears his throat. Well, there's been no change in her condition, he announces, but she's stable, and her vital signs are fine, and she's in very good hands, and I don't think we have to worry. Charlie and Joe agree. On the spot, you name the bear Teddy. His fur is tan except for his off-white muzzle belly, feet, and the insides of his ears. His little felt tongue is sticking out. Deep in the center of each black button eye is a softly glowing golden star that seems to follow you when you move. You hold him tightly all night long and listen to the traffic, the radiator, the clock, and your father turning and tossing because he can't sleep either. Graham moves into the 2 room. Let me know when I get 30 minutes.
You're only at 10.
Only at 10? Damn. Graham moves into the 2-room apartment to take care of everybody. She sleeps on the couch in the den, where sometimes you take, or at least try to take, afternoon naps together. You like to play with the floppy folds of fat hanging from her upper arms. You grasp the smooth, soft flesh and gently shake it back and forth, making soft, smooth ripples from her armpit to her elbow. She lets you do this until she's had enough and pinches your cheek hard. She can't pinch with her thumb and first finger anymore because they're so twisted and crooked. So she gets you between her first and second knuckles, and it hurts, and you stop. Sometimes you and Graham play a game with the reflections cast on the white ceiling by traffic passing by below. The reflections are so clear that you can see each car's color and shape. The game is to call what kind of vehicle it is, what color it is, and whether it's going up Chandler Street or down. The tricky part is that a car driving up the hill from right to left makes an image on the ceiling that goes from left to right. And those heading down the hill from left to right appear to pass from right to left. So it goes like this. Red fire truck going up, yellow cab going down, blue car going up, green garbage truck going up, checkered cab going up, down, and you laugh together. Graham knows you have trouble sleeping too, so she keeps you company as long as you're quiet and don't wake your mother. Sometimes Graham pretends to be sleeping, so you pretend too. And sometimes she's really asleep, and you silently play the game by yourself, or draw imaginary lines connecting all the corners of the furniture, the room, the window, desk compartments, and whatever else. The doctors still don't know what's wrong with your mother, but she seems to be doing a little bit better every day. By the time she came home, she could smile and turn her head and lift her right forearm. On the 3rd day, you woke to find she was talking again. The first thing she said to you was, "Don't you ever forget how much I love you." And you won't, ever. A few days later, she was sitting up, holding a magazine, reading for a few minutes, and then walking unsteadily to the bathroom and back, supported by Graham on one side and your father on the other. A week later, she was getting around the place on her own with a cane, which she seldom uses these days. And throughout all the weeks, Graham has shopped and cooked and fed everybody while taking care of your mother and changing her bedpan, giving her sponge baths and spending time with her. Up until March 1st, a visiting nurse came to visit every few days to check on her progress and help Graham change the sheets. Your mother's been getting stronger every day. She still tires easily and has to nap every afternoon, and might have to for the rest of her life. But the whole family's together again. Graham still does most of the housework, but your mother's been taking back more and more chores. Graham says she's moving back home because there's an inch of dust all over everything there. And the first night, your mom was able to tuck you in and sing you a lullaby again. You fell asleep right away and dreamed of sweet-smelling purple flowers. You could still smell them when you woke up the next morning. It's Easter Sunday morning, and the three of you get all dressed up and walk down the hall into the rickety elevator, which sways and clatters all the way down. Your mother hangs on for dear life. Your father laughs. You do both. On the way to church, the air smells sweet and clean. She takes his arm and walks without the cane, which he hangs on his other arm in case she gets tired. Charlie waves through the bluebell window, and you walk down the hill past McIntyre's Furniture. It's a sunny red brick morning on your way to church today. The light beams bright through stained glass scenes of ruby hearts and Christ's blue robe and big sad eyes turned up to golden rays of heaven. The organ and the sweet smell of lilies fill you up. You fall asleep. And on the way home, you stop for breakfast at the Bluebell. Joe Fadul, who owns and operates the diner, comes out from behind the counter to personally welcome back your mother. Smiling, he guides her into a booth with an open window and gives her a menu while your father talks to Charlie about baseball. And you spin around and around on one of the stools, fingertips exploring the gum. Stop that, please, your mother says. Tell Charlie what you want, and then go wash your hands. In the men's room mirror, you notice the handprint is almost gone. You think back to Thursday when you and your father came down for an early supper of grilled swordfish, thick and juicy, drenched in butter and lemon. Charlie and Joe asked about the bright red handprint on your left cheek, and you told them what your mother had told you to say if anyone asked. My father hit me. He laughed and raised his hands and said, I was aiming for his butt, but he was squirming around so fast I got the wrong end. He didn't tell them how you cried so hard you turned blue and passed out. Or how when your mother found out about it, she told him he'd better never hit you again. Charlie and Joe looked at each other real quick and kind of laughed. Then they looked at you, and you felt hot and sweaty and excused yourself to go to the restroom. In the mirror, your whole face was almost as red as the handprint. Anyway, it's almost gone, and your mother's home at last, and you're hungry, and Charlie makes the best eggs over easy in the world. With a jagged piece of flattened out butter-grilled English muffin, you carefully pierce the yolk's thin, milky skin and sop up the delicious eruption of golden lava. You and Clowny are sitting in the cinders under the old crabapple tree in the small courtyard behind the Bluebell. Charlie says this tree was old long before the Bluebell and A's Flying A and Tony's Barber Shop were ever here. It doesn't grow many apples anymore, and a handful of falls are always hard as rocks and not much bigger than walnuts. Charlie's face keeps popping up in the little window by his grill. He glances out every few minutes to make sure you're okay. Your father got locked into a part. Let me stop for a second here and take a breath and a drink. I apologize. Your father got locked into a part-time job during the war, and now he's out looking for full-time work. A cool October breeze makes the trees' crisp leaves whisper, but you're pretty cozy down here, surrounded by a high concrete wall and protected in front by the diner. It's getting cloudy and cooler, but your red-black cinders are still warm from the high noon sun. Clowny is a doll your father won for you at White City on Labor Day weekend, a few days after your mother fell down again and had to go back to the hospital. You and your father got up early that Saturday, had breakfast at the Bluebell, walked to the Union Station, and took the dummy railroad to White City. You rode the merry-go-round, the bumper cars, the Ferris wheel, the little train. You had hot dogs, potato chips, Cokes, and cotton candy. You went in the fun house and the penny arcade, and he knocked down a stack of wooden milk bottles with a rubber ball and asked you which prize you wanted. You picked Clowny. Later, you sat on a bench by the shore of Lake Quinsigamon eating ice cream cones and watching the sailboats in the sunset. Nobody said anything for a while, and that was okay. White City's famous 50,000 lights flashed on. And out of nowhere, he said, "We're going to have to be brave." "I know," you said. You felt like a grown-up. You felt like you loved him. Clowny's body is covered in corduroy from her stiff, footless legs and handless arms to the pointy peak of her hat from which a single jingle bell dangles. Her left side is green on top and red on the bottom, while her right side is red on top and green on the bottom. Her face is a white plastic shell, slightly dented on one cheek. On the trolley ride home that night, you learned that if you pressed your thumb against your cheek, just enough to make it buckle, just a little, it would pop right back out. A minute later, you learned that if you made it buckle just a little bit more, it would stay that way forever. Anyway, Clowny's leaning against a tree, watching you play with your lead soldiers, hopelessly outnumbered by a vast army of cinder soldiers. They're bravely defending their cinder fort. The soldiers are heavy and fall slowly, one after another. Their lips are never painted on quite right, as if their lipstick had been smeared in battle. Sudden raindrops fall through barren branches and get sucked in by dry, holy cinders. It's raining harder, so you grab Clowny and dash into the diner, leaving behind your dead soldiers. Joe Fadul makes the best spaghetti and meatballs in the world, except for Tony Esposito's wife, according to Tony. Tony owns and operates Tony's Barbershop right across Chandler Street from Al's Flying A. He's kind of famous for inventing the Tonys, which is an electric razor with different attachments he can put on, depending on how short you want your butch. You're sitting at the counter by the case of corn muffins and cutting your spaghetti. Tony sits down to your right and orders a cup of regular coffee and a chili dog. He looks at you and yells, "Hey, Pastor Fazul, what's the matter, you?" Startled, you drop your knife on the floor. He laughs and tussles your hair and says, "Okay, that's a fine, Bambino. You only needed the knife to butter your Italian bread. Who taught you how to eat spaghetti, huh?" He puts down his thick tan mug, moves behind you, and reaches around you with both hands. Charlie slaps down a soup spoon on the counter before Tony can ask for it. Tony picks it up with his left hand, and with his right hand he picks up your fork. "I show you how to eat spaghetti," he says, catching 3 or 4 strands with the fork, resting the fork slightly against the spoon, quickly twirling the strings into just the right bite, which he guides into your mouth. He puts down your silverware, touches his fingertips to his thumb, and says, "A la king." With that, he eats his chili dog in 3 bites, finishes his coffee, and hurries back to work. You practice twirling, trying not to stare at the old man sitting at the end of the counter. He comes in every day, but you don't know his name. He never talks, except to mumble his order to Charlie, who has to bend over the counter to hear. He looks like a gnome or a wizard, except for his overcoat and scally cap, with long pointed nose and chin, wild white hair and bushy brows over eyes like caves, and a giant lower lip. The thing is, he has Parkinson's disease, and he can't stop his arm, his hand, his head, that lower lip, from shaking. He leans forward over his bowl and opens wide, but by the time he raises his spoon to that lip, dripping soupy circles in the air, most of it ends up back in the bowl or dribbling down his scrawny beard onto the extra napkin tucked into his collar. He goes back for another spoonful. You look away. The door slides open behind him, and old Freddie staggers in and falls to the corner booth. Without a word, Charlie serves him a mug of black coffee, makes him a fried egg sandwich on toast, and serves it to him. Then he gets the pot and sits down with him. Almost toothless Freddie smiles up and drains the mug. Charlie refills it and reminds Freddie he's wasting his life and he needs to get off the sauce and save up some cash from his Navy pension instead of giving away whatever he doesn't spend on booze. You know that's true because Freddie's given you money more than once, and your parents told you not to accept anymore. "Ah, forget about him. He's a drunk," says Tony. "A bum." But Charlie feels sorry for Freddie because he used to be Charlie's trainer when Charlie was a prize fighter known as Kid Lee. He refills the mug one more time and takes the pot back behind the counter. You can't finish your spaghetti, and you go over to say hi to Freddie because you feel sorry for him, too. He smiles and shakes your hand and pulls out his wallet. You say, "I can't take any more money from you, Freddie." He says, oh, I ain't going to give you no dough, kid. His breath smelling better than usual. What do you think? What do you want to be when you grow up? A cowboy, you quickly replied. Freddie looks a little better, too. Well, horses cost a lot of money, he says, opening his wallet. You got to stable them, keep them in oats, shoe them, and horse doctors ain't cheap. Looky here. And he points to George Washington's picture on the first bill. Know who that is? And of course you do, because you were born on George Washington's birthday. See how they're all facing the same way? And all $7 bills are lined up, facing the same way, heads up, Philly collars down. See how they're all facing the same way? And indeed, all $7 are lined up, facing the same way, wigs up, Philly collars down. He takes one out and puts it back in, upside down. Don't ever put him in like this, he says, because he can see out. And if he can see out, he can get out. He replaces the bill correctly and puts away his wallet. Don't ever forget that, he says with a wink. And you won't, ever. The end of chapter 1. The Blue Belt.